Hi, my name's Mark Stallard. Welcome to Little Green Man. Today I'm going to be talking about one of the biggest and best inventions that has ever been introduced into the realm of politics. And that is funding public services using private money. Now, this has been prompted by the Pallister government, the Progressive Conservative government, pursuing P3 model for schools. I think there are about 5 schools that is planning to be built in and around Winnipeg in Manitoba using the P3 model. And so I think it would be a good idea for me to look into this because I'm really quite ignorant. I was quite ignorant about this model until I started to research for this show. And so the P3 model is public-private partnerships. The idea is quite simple. You take some public money, you take some private money, you put it into a pool, and you pay private people to do the work that public servants had been doing up till then. And then you enter into contracts, and it's supposed to save us money, make it better. So I decided, well, I'm going to do some research. So first thing I did go to Google, your best friend, and I typed in P3 Schools Canada. I started at the top, trying to be as fair as I could, reading all the way down, and I got to about 30 good, solid, long articles that I was reading through, and I figured, well, I think I've read enough. And of those articles that I read, I found 2 articles that were positive. And I don't mean partially positive. I mean, there were 2 articles that were 100% positive about P3. Now, there were lots of articles that were negative about it, but there were some positive sides as well. They were certainly trying to present both sides. But the 2 in question, one was saying just how wonderful and shiny it is, and how it's probably the best thing that could ever happen is P3 is great for the private sector. So I went quickly to look at who these people are, and Public Sector Digest. They're a publication and a company that promotes the private sector taking over the public sector. So this was obviously very clearly and I think unashamedly a piece of puff propaganda to sell their business. So I pushed that aside. There's a link here if you want to see it in the description. All the sources I used today are going to be in the description as usual. And that was the only real pro P3 website I could find. There was an article in the Winnipeg Sun, which was the second piece, and that's as you'd expect from a conservative-owned, conservative-run rag. Pallister could do no wrong, and so I pushed that aside as well because it was completely biased, and there wasn't even the slightest hint of objectivity or attempt at it. Again, sources in the description, you can check it out, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. In reading what's going on, we've got Brian Pallister is using to audit the school system, has got this outside third-party consultation company called KPMG. These are the same people that he used to do an audit and a rundown of the healthcare system here in Manitoba, the one that led to closing 3 of the 6 emergency rooms. So we can take what they say with a pinch of salt, perhaps. But if they come out with good results that help make things better, I don't really want to be harping on them for too much, but digging into them a little bit deeper just to understand who they are, they really don't have a very good history of dealing fairly. They're a bit of tax cheats. They've been caught and somehow forgiven by Canada Revenue, but you can check out their Wikipedia page and it outlines them there. But again, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to do a bad job this time. What happened with the healthcare is that they refused to release the information that they found to the public that paid for it with our tax money. We're not allowed to see it because it is proprietary information. So they own our data and they won't release it. And that in itself is kind of shady. That's Brian Pallister's not doing anything to further that. And we're probably going to be in the same boat again when they say, no, this is going to be great for schools, but we're not going to be able to see the information that proves that is true. So if this is good information and it proves it's true, why are they hiding it? Why are they hiding it as far as the healthcare? Well, because it's obviously quite damning for them, I'm sure. And I'm just reading between the lines, opinion, of course. Now, there's another question as well. This is a pro-privatization company. That is pretty much all they do. is that KPMG, pretty much all their contracts are to prove that privatization is good for the public sector. So, so using a pro-privatization company to do an audit and to propose solutions is suspect itself. Not just a little self-serving. I think we've got maybe a conflict of interest, but certainly it's going to be completely biased. That's my take on this anyway. Again, you can look into them a little bit more yourselves. So, what are the big things that we can learn? Manitoba's not the first province to use the P3 model. We've had Alberta and Nova Scotia have both spent a considerable amount of money and considerable time trying to make this P3 model of schools work. And this is specifically schools. Now, a lot of my findings, it turns out, here can actually be applied to all levels of privatization. So when we're saying privatization will save money, well, will it cost less? Will it cost more? Well, actually, it will cost a lot more. CBC had an article, private investors are the big winners in P3 deals, researchers say, by Harrison Samphir, hopefully I said that right, on November 2016. I'm just going to read this for you. P3s often involve investment in projects that serve private interests before the public good. In practical terms, this means toll roads, higher user fees, and even steeper costs. For taxpayers, especially those who rely upon public infrastructure in their daily lives, it's a raw deal. Studies have shown public-private partnerships cost up to 16% more than contracts funded completely by the public, in part because governments enjoy much lower interest rates than private borrowers. Now, of course, we're talking about they can borrow money for more. It costs them more to borrow money than it does for the public sector. So, right off the top of the bat, why would we want to get involved with people who will just off the bat it's going to cost us more because they can't get that money cheaper unless it's their own money out of their own pockets, which is unlikely. Now, we're also wondering, okay, so if it does cost more, maybe we save money. Maybe we can save a bit of money in the long term if we put more money up front. Well, what we found actually, this was Nova Scotia. Again, it's another CBC article. Province to buy 10 public-private partnership schools for $49.3 million is the name of the article by Julie Patil. So hopefully I said that right. Apologies to the author. This was released in July this year. 2010, Nova Scotia's Auditor General at the time said school boards were delivering the services at a lower cost than what was paid to the developers. The Auditor General, Jacques Lapointe, said the province could have saved $52 million if it had built schools the traditional way. And so they're actually buying them back because they are losing so much money on them. And it's really quite laughable that why would we continue with this model? And of course, why are they? Why are we losing money on these projects? Well, it's quite simple. It's profits over people. People don't matter because the private sector wants to make a profit, and it always does. The public sector doesn't have to make a profit because it's there to serve the people. If anybody in that is making a profit, then they're considered to be corrupt, and we sue them, and they go to prison. But if people do that in the private sector, it's called making a profit. And what that means is there's less money to go toward the service because they have to take their profit off the top, even if it's a little bit of profit off the top. So it costs more for them to borrow the money, and they take a little bit of profit off the top. So we're going to have significantly less money going to the public service, in this case, schools. So now the Auditor General, this was from the Nova Scotia, it was referred to in the last article there. This is the Auditor General's report, February 2010. Our audit identified instances in which child abuse registry and criminal record checks, fire safety inspections, and emergency first aid and CPR training were not completed by the developers as required under the service contracts. Well, of course, there we go. How do private companies make money? Anybody that's been involved in private companies in one way or another will know you've got to cut you cut your spending. So we have to maximize profits by not spending as much and selling what we're selling for more. So whether that's a service or a product. And so the way that you would cut schools is that you don't train them for CPR on the safety inspections and so on, excuse me. So why are we pushing forward for this? Why is Brian Pallister going for this? There must be lots of facts then that do say the opposite. Maybe he's just not sure. Well, the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives are saying not that there is no evidence for this. We've got a few quotes here. They're a little bit lengthy, so I apologise for the length of them. The study evaluates the province's P3 schools programme and funds there were a lack of evidence-based decision-making. No kind of cost-benefit analysis was done prior to the initiation of the projects, or at any time since. In addition, there were several examples of mismanagement of the programme, ranging from a lack of oversight by the province to safety concerns that placed students at risk. So again, it's there's mismanagement. They're obviously not paying the management enough, or they're finding someone who is cheap, cutting down on all those safety requirements, and so on. Now, another quote from is that there were no proven evidence-based advantages in using P3s, and clear disadvantages emerged. These P3 contracts didn't bring new private money to build this infrastructure, rather they just delivered it in a more expensive form. The contracts didn't help governments avoid public debt, they shifted it. Risk transfer as a key advantage to using P3s was oversold and underdelivered. The challenges of project management are more complex under P3. So you make them more complex, they become more difficult to manage, they become more expensive. That the debt is more expensive, and the private companies are trying to cut so they can increase their own profits. But there's another part as well about these P3 contracts, particularly these ones that are referring to the Nova Scotia, was that P3 contracts are by their nature undemocratic. Commercial confidentiality and the protection of a private corporation's private interests are convenient political tools used to trump the public interest. The lack of transparency and accountability points to the need to improve on these points across government decision-making. However, this democratic concern, coupled with the high cost, signals that our government should not actually enter into these kinds of agreements for schools or indeed any other public infrastructure again. So we're going to come to pretty much a definitive answer to this. Are P3 schools good? Are public-private partnerships worthwhile? Well, clearly they're not. Before you even start, a private company must make a profit. And if it doesn't make a profit, well, then it doesn't be in business. There is no for-profit business that is breaking even. There isn't a single one. They sell off or they go under. And they go under before they start losing money. Once the profits go down, start to drop, before they've lost money, they sell off or they go under and they declare bankruptcy. So we can be absolutely sure they don't cost savings, that the quality of service that they provide are greatly reduced from what they would be under a public funding model, because they have to make a profit. There will be less money for the service itself because profit, interest. There's big chunks extra on top of that. Now, there have been issues with contractors that won't or find ways to get around the contract so they can save a little bit of money. And we've had examples of that here. That QP has actually had an article, and it'll be on the screen here in a second there. But then they will show that there's actually they have a problem. The public-private partnerships have a problem with increased local capacity, because as communities grow, the schools need to get bigger, and because of the inflexibility and the amount of money that are in these schools, they can't expand, because if they expand, they're going to lose that profit, or they're even going to start losing money, which in fact is what has happened. And above all, they are incredibly unflexible. They need to be more flexible. So the reasons to bring them in-house, and this is the point of that QP article, was you bring them back. The Nova Scotia schools, they are actually bringing them back to save money, to make up, to provide a better quality of service, because the contractors themselves are problematic, to increase the capacity of those schools to actually serve the community properly, and for to be able to be more flexible so that the community can be served. So let me ask why, Mr. Pallister, you are pushing for this P3 model when it is right across Canada. I mean, we're talking of Alberta, Nova Scotia, and right across everyone that's used the P3 model. They have been disastrous. They have been horrible. And people are pulling out of them, particularly in Canada. Provinces are pulling out of them. So why would you push for something that is absolutely known and factually can be proven that it is going to fail? Well, that's only a question that the progressive conservative leader can say for himself. But I think it has really nothing more to do than the distaste for public services of conservative parties. They have pushed this agenda for 30, 40 years, that the public sector is bad. We can't give working people stuff, even though they've paid for it in their own taxes. But we must give private companies more and more and more. And now we're in a position where corporations are running the bloody country. So you can look at this for yourself. Lots of links in the description. You can read into it, you can comment, and you can correct me where I'm wrong. But I think that in the end, we've got to ask ourselves the question, why? Why would a leader of a province push us in a direction where he knows he is going to fail 100%? It does lack just a little bit of common sense. Little green man.